What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Footy with an Edge. Manchester United have just lost 4-3 to FC Copenhagen in the Champions League to make it 3 losses out of 4 in Europe and 9 losses out of 17 in all competitions this season. Here's some more stats just to make you feel even worse about this season. We've lost 5 out of 10 games played at Old Trafford this season, which is the worst record since the 1930-31 season, which is 93 years ago. We've had back-to-back 3-0 home defeats against City and Newcastle, which is the first time since 1962, which is 61 years ago. We have already lost 5 games in the Premier League this season, which means we've lost more games already in early November than we did in 5 entire individual seasons in our past, those being the 93-94, 98-99, 2000, 2009, and 2011 seasons. And we're probably on track to losing 5 out of our 6 group stage games, with Galatasaray away and Bayern at home remaining. What is actually happening to Manchester United? What is actually happening to the team that we all love and have watched and have admired for years and years? You guys must be familiar with the Pareto principle, which roughly translates to 20% of the work drives 80% of the value. Right now, this United team seems to be putting in 80% of the work to drive only 20% of the value. Nothing seems to be going our way. Either our opposition is too good and we're never in the game, or we're in the game for 70, 80, 90 minutes and we still manage to lose the game. Tactics, skill, fitness, resilience, mentality have all gone out of the window because every game we seem to play, we're playing it for survival and we're barely hanging on. So where does this team actually go from here? Is there anything we can learn from this game or from any of the last 17 games we've played this season? That's exactly what we're here to talk about, so let's get straight into it. So this game started out as a free-flowing end-to-end game, and for the first time in a long time, we were actually seeing the positive transitional football that Ten Hag has been talking about since the start of last season. We finally got an early goal to kick things off. We finally created 2 clear-cut chances and actually took them. We finally created chances for our young, unproven striker to give him some confidence. And we finally got away with being open at the back because our opponents didn't really convert like their first or second or third chance. But probably most importantly, we finally had at least 3 of our first choice back 5 playing for the most of the game. I know Johnny Evans started over Varane, but Varane, Wan-Bissaka, and Onana were actually playing most of the game. But even these positives come with some question marks because we were playing a team that kept coming at us and staying open at the back. We were playing a team that was playing poorly at home. And we were playing a team that didn't necessarily have all the form in the world coming into this game, which means that performance in the first 30 to 40 minutes of the game where we were playing really well, we looked really dominant, we looked like we could score 3 or 4 or 5 goals, wasn't really as good as it appeared. We can't really take that performance as a step in the right direction because we need to see that over 3, 4, 5 games to actually believe it is the new norm instead of the exception. And then in the 42nd minute, the entire game changed on its head because Rashford got a red card that gets him sent off. And immediately after that, Copenhagen gets 2 goals to end the half on level terms. Now, I'm going to talk about 2 particular incidents in this period after the 42nd minute because I need to for my mental health, and I believe this is a relatively safe space. And you guys too, get in the comments below about what I'm going to talk about right now. First, someone explained to me how VAR is not refereeing the game at this point. The referee being sent to the monitor to review Rashford's red card is 100% refereeing the game because the ref hasn't even given a yellow for that in real time. For him to be sent to the monitor where they show him the incident in slow motion, starting with the impact in a freeze frame, and he's presumably also being told by VAR in his ears that, hey, this might be a red card, go check it out. How is that not refereeing the game? How is there any intent from Rashford? Because surely they can see that Rashford's not even looking at the Copenhagen player, absolutely throwing himself at the ball. And how is that a clear and obvious error? Because surely there has to be some doubt about whether or not it is reckless and whether or not the ref actually saw that in real time and thought it wasn't that bad. So if that particular incident is a red, then surely when two players jump for a header and one of them gets stretchered off because he got a concussion, the other player should just be sent off because it doesn't matter what the intent is. And in this particular Rashford situation, doesn't the recklessness in question also belong a little bit to the player that threw his foot under Rashford while he was trying to jockey him away from the ball? And I know that last part sounds a little stupid to say, but what choice does VAR leave us? We're here sitting and talking about intent and inconsistency and recklessness when we should be talking about the performance. Why are we going back and re-refereeing games? That just doesn't make any sense to me, and that just shows that people who are using this technology just don't know what they're doing. So the second incident that I want to talk about from that first half, which is the double handball from Varane and Maguire. I'm pissed about that incident too, not because it shouldn't have been a penalty under the current rules. I'm pissed because the rules themselves are way too strict, and because their application is way too inconsistent. Against Tottenham earlier this season, how the hell was the Romero handball not given when this today was given? Romero had his hands in the air as he's sliding in for the tackle, and apparently there was no intent and no recklessness in that particular incident. Surely that one is a bloody handball if this one today was. And someone also needs to explain to me how handling the ball on purpose to stop a goal when you know what you're doing is any worse than the accidental handballs that we saw today. Because both Varane and Maguire, they're not trying to stop the ball. The ball's going nowhere. There's no power in it. Nobody's recently taken a shot. It's just pinballing its way inside the box and hits Varane's arm and then hits Maguire's arm as well. So why is it that an accidental handball and a deliberate handball leads to the same punishment, which is basically a goal for the other team? And for what it's worth, I thought the penalty against Copenhagen was also bullshit, because the ref watched that one for about 3 minutes on the monitor and only gave it because they knew that they had given some BS decisions against Man United throughout that game. It's just incredibly frustrating to see VAR being used too frequently, too inconsistently, and frankly to ruin games of football single-handedly. So personally, we need to have a real long hard look at VAR, because the way it's being used, whether it's in Europe or in the Premier League, is just absolutely unacceptable. There are lots of other sports that use ball tracking technology and other technology to help them make decisions, and every single one of those other sports gets it right. How can we have the biggest sport in the world's game really, have such terrible use of technology? This is just unacceptable. So like I said before, United have now lost 9 of their opening 17 games in all competitions, which gives us a win rate of just 47%. But the reality is far worse than that, because we haven't just lost 9 games. We've scored only 24 goals, which is about 1.4 per game. We've conceded 30 goals, which is 1.8 per game. And it's not like we're creating tons of chances and unlucky for not converting them, because we're only underperforming our XG by about 2 goals. And it's also not like our opponents are scoring absolute screamers and we're getting really unlucky, because our XG against is 29.2. Now, to make things slightly worse, okay, a lot worse, I'm going to add another column to this table that's been on your screen so far, which is whether or not we actually played well in each of our 17 games. And admittedly, this isn't some stats-based information. I've just watched all 17 games, and purely based on my judgment of how these games went, I'm going to tell you if we deserve to win. And as you can see here, we've only deserved to win 4 games this season. Against Tottenham, where we could have had 3 goals in the first half, including that Romero penalty that wasn't given. Against Arsenal, where we could have been 2-1 up thanks to that Garnacho goal that was ruled offside. Against Palace in the EFL Cup when Casemiro scored 2. and against Copenhagen today where we were cruising at 2-0 up. Now, before you start arguing with me in the comments about the Tottenham and the Arsenal games and how that wasn't deserved, think about this for a second. We only won 1 out of those 4 games that I just mentioned that we deserved to win, which means out of the 8 games that we actually won this season, we didn't deserve to win 7 of them. Wolves, Forest, Burnley, Brentford, Sheffield United, Copenhagen at home, and Fulham away were all games that we potentially got away with. They were all games where the opposition could have won and we would have just had no excuse. The reality is that we've been embarrassed time and time again this season, and the performances, the results, and the general vibe around the club is worse, far worse than we could have ever imagined. So why, in my opinion, is this even happening? And where do we actually go from here? Let's tackle the first question. In football, again, my opinion here, there are 4 or 5, maybe even more, main factors that lead to a club's success. The quality of coaching, the quality of the overall squad, the match sharpness and fitness of the overall squad, the individual brilliance or skill of certain match-winning players, and finally, the club's overall infrastructure, which includes things like the training ground, medical department, and other club staff. In the past, maybe up till 10 or 15 years ago, clubs could manage to be successful by being good at 2 or 3 or 4 of these 5 factors. Look at United's 98-99 team. They had a great coach, great players with tons of match-winning individual brilliance, and incredible fitness. But they didn't necessarily have the best depth in Europe off the bench. But this was okay because it was good enough to get away with. They also didn't necessarily have the best infrastructure in Europe, like the training grounds, club staff, medical department, etc., but it was good enough to get away with. And most importantly, the things that United were great at were good enough to overshadow the things that we weren't great at. But in modern football, as time has rolled on and more money has poured into this sport, you have to be the best or the second best at every single factor to make you a successful club. And Manchester City are the epitome of this perfection because they have the best coach, the best squad, the best depth, the best fitness, the best match winners, the best training ground, the best medical department, and the best stadium, and on and on and on. And even they had to wait till last season to actually win the treble. And compare that to Arsenal, who were probably the second best last season at most of these things. They didn't manage to overtake City because they weren't the best. So the point I'm trying to make is that the margins are extremely, extremely slim between the haves and the have-nots in modern football. And the second point I'm trying to make is that Manchester United are not just the 3rd or 4th or 5th best at the key factors that we're talking about. They are the 10th or the 15th or the 20th worst team when you look at things like quality of the overall squad, match sharpness and fitness of the players, match winning ability, medical department, training grounds, the stadium, and so on and so forth. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that Erik Ten Hag is not a bad coach when you view things through this lens, because while he's not the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th best manager in the league, he's definitely not the 10th or 15th or 20th worst manager in the league. So to recap, the reason why Manchester United is in this state and why these things have happened to us this season is not because we are unlucky. It's because we have too much going wrong with the club at the moment for us to be able to generate any positive momentum in the right direction and turn things around. The players and the coach seem like they're trying way too hard week in, week out to just get over the line against crap teams like Fulham, Sheffield, and Copenhagen. And even when they try way too hard against half-decent teams, we just get blown away. The only thing, in my opinion, that will stop the bleeding at this point is a hard reset. And this is where we'll address our second question from before about where do we go from here. As fans, we should accept that the Champions League is over and hope that we finish last. We should focus on getting top 4 and maybe winning the FA Cup But honestly, I don't even care about the FA Cup. I will take top 4 and snatch your hands off. And we should also take the humbling that we've received in these first 17 games to realize that we are actually a mid-table club at the moment, very akin to Chelsea last season. Because while we're praying for top 4, and as fans we should always hope for the best, we should be okay with swallowing the bitter pill of finishing 6th or 7th or even 8th, because that is just the reality. Get in the comments below with your thoughts. Do you agree with my assessment of the game today and the assessment of the state of this club? Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.